What would you do if poverty chained you so tightly that your freedom was sold for a fortune, and the man you were forced to marry turned out to be nothing like you imagined? Stay with me until the very end of this gripping story, because the twists will leave you breathless. And don't forget to hit subscribe, because more life-changing stories are waiting just for you. Once upon a time in a small, crumbling neighborhood on the edge of a glittering city, there lived a young woman named Alina, who was so poor that every single day felt like a war between survival and surrender. Her clothes worn thin, her shoes barely holding together, her mother sick in bed and her younger brother hungry most nights, and although she worked endless shifts at a tiny cafe, scrubbing floors, carrying trays, and often skipping meals herself, the money never seemed to be enough, and debts loomed like dark clouds ready to swallow her entire family, until one evening when an older man in a fine suit, whom she had never seen before, knocked on her rickety door, carrying a proposition so shocking that her world stopped in its tracks, because he said, "For $5 million, you will marry a man," and those words struck Alina like lightning, filling her with confusion, fear, and a strange flutter of disbelief, because never in her wildest dreams had she imagined someone offering such a staggering fortune to a girl who could barely afford bread, and when she asked why, the man smiled in a way that revealed nothing, explaining that the wealthy family he represented had reasons of their own, reasons she need not question, only agree or refuse, and in that moment her heart twisted with torment, because $5 million could cure her mother, secure her brother's education, erase their debts forever, and finally give them a chance at a real life. But the price was her freedom, her dignity, and her future, for she would belong to a stranger, not by love but by contract, and though her tears burned as she thought of the sacrifice, she finally whispered yes, because she could not watch her family suffer another day, and just like that her fate was sealed. The wedding happened quickly, almost like a transaction, with no flowers, no music, just a quiet ceremony in an opulent hall where she stood in a borrowed white dress that did not fit, her hands trembling as she signed her name beside his, though she had not even dared to look at the man she was marrying, her mind spinning with dread of who he might be. An old tyrant, a cruel businessman, someone who would treat her as nothing more than property. And when she finally lifted her eyes during the vows, her heart nearly stopped, for standing beside her was a man not older than his late 20s, tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp yet kind eyes and a presence so commanding that even the golden chandeliers above seemed dim compared to him. And though his face was strikingly handsome, there was a coldness in his expression, a guarded distance that made her shiver, and she realized he was not just a man. He was the CEO of one of the biggest corporations in the city, someone whose name she had only heard whispered in newspapers and television reports, but never imagined meeting in person, and now, impossibly, she was his wife. His name was Adrian Blackwell, a man surrounded by wealth, power, and endless rumors of ruthless business deals, and yet he looked at her with an unreadable expression, as though this marriage meant nothing more than a formality to him, and indeed, the moment they signed the papers, he told her coldly, "This marriage is a deal, nothing more. You stay in my house, follow the rules, and after 1 year, you will walk away with your money," words that pierced her like knives, yet strangely offered relief, because at least she knew where she stood, or so she thought, but little did she know that beneath his icy demeanor was a storm of secrets, and that her life was about to spiral into a web of betrayal, danger, and unexpected love. The mansion she moved into was nothing like the world she knew, marble floors gleaming like mirrors, rooms so large they swallowed her with emptiness, staff that looked at her with suspicion as though she were an imposter, and Adrian himself remained distant, often locked away in his office or attending late-night meetings, barely acknowledging her presence, which made her feel more like a ghost than a wife. But what Alina didn't realize was that her arrival had already sent shockwaves through the corridors of power, because Adrian's sudden marriage was not just about business but also about protecting himself from enemies who circled him like vultures, powerful rivals who wanted to destroy him. And this, poor girl, was his shield in ways she could not yet understand. Days turned into weeks, and though she tried to stay invisible, fate had other plans, because one night when she overheard Adrian on the phone, his voice low and urgent, speaking